Hello, comrades and peers. Welcome to part 3 of How to Win More Miniature Wargames. In the first two parts, we explored different aspects that will help you to win more games. And I would now like to add 2 more in this video. So far, these basic tips were independent of the game system and the era chosen. Those 2 are also not tied to a system or timeline, but as you will see, they are no longer completely independent of it. That doesn't mean that you should use as much or as little terrain as possible. The number of terrain pieces is more a question of the scenario you are playing and what era you game. No, here I'm more into using the terrain pieces given by the scenario or game setup. Some terrain constellations may present a particular chance or risk for your army. It is important to notice and consider these before battle. Are there free lines for advance or any choke points? Are there obstructions that restrict visibility or the area of fire? In addition, we have the artificial boundaries of our playing area. Are they absolute, or is there the possibility of a flank march in the scenario or rule set? Many players are distracted by the classic "my half on the table, your half on the table" division, unable to realize that it might be better to prefer a defensive position in a different spot, or to attack from a different angle. Let's take a look at a few pieces of terrain and their typical features. Hills and elevations are almost always a good thing, unless they are too steep or inaccessible in one place or another. It allows a good line of sight and is therefore popular for artillery and spotters. As a rule, they are also good defensive positions, as many rules give attack or defense bonuses for elevated positions. Never forget that it's also easier to be seen if the hill towers over another visual obstruction. This happens if your game includes different levels of elevation. Woods are another classic terrain piece. They offer a nice combination of advantages and disadvantages for every army. On the one hand, forests are visual obstruction and are usually difficult to cross. Cavalry or vehicles, in particular, usually have a difficult time here. On the other hand, they mostly provide some defense bonuses for units in their area, and light troops can often move without penalty. This makes them good defensive positions, and with long-range weapons they can even be used to threaten the surrounding area. Build-up areas go one step further. They are significantly easier to traverse and much easier to defend. In addition, they are also a visual obstruction. On the other hand, in many systems you can set buildings on fire, which makes them a little more dangerous on the long run. Splintering wood in forests and forest fires are extremely rarely included in most rule sets. The little brother of the surface obstacles are linear obstacles: walls, hedges, fences. They also block movement and offer some protection, but from only one side. If the obstacle is overcome or bypassed at one point, it becomes worthless, or could even become a trap. Heavy, rough terrain would be the next category. It usually slows down the movement of a unit, and vehicles can sometimes even get stuck. This can be useful in front of a defensive line. But think about light troops or specialists, for whom this terrain may be not an obstacle. Something like this can lead to nasty surprises. Finally, the same applies to impassable terrain, such as a river or ravine. There should be no danger from here other than special rules. But the enemy may have brought boats with them or sent patrols looking for a fort. Terrain and sometimes the edge of the field can secure your flanks. But it is also important to identify suitable places for an advance. At the end, a rule of thumb for terrain. The more firepower the opponent has, the more terrain you need. Fast and armored units prefer open terrain. Most players tend to use a brute force approach on the field. If the scenario does not provide for reserves, none are usually retained. This then leads to an all-or-nothing approach. Concentrating the units on one point can be very effective, but since the enemy also acts, you should be prepared for his move. And that's where the reserves come into play. I've seen quite a few games that were abandoned in round 2 or 3, because the attacker had already worn out his best troops and simply gave up. These are usually not nice games and are frustrating for the opponent. Reserves ensure the flow of the game for a more interesting middle or end game. Systems in which the reserve can be kept off board allow for a certain flexibility. You can often choose where to deploy, and your unit will quickly reach the right spot. Onboard reserves must be deployed with care. You should use mobile troops if possible for this task, or keep them in the center of your line. A staggered deployment of units is not reserve in the true sense, but it can be used in a similar way. If you position a second line or wave behind your front troops, you can improve your reaction options and can even change the focus of an attack in a second attempt. The same applies in defense. A second line can plug holes or even try to outflank the attacker. Of course, you should use the terrain mentioned above to secure flank protection or to anchor and shorten the lines. If units can be restored or healed, a second line is particularly useful to maintain your army's effectiveness. Front units should then be regularly replaced by fresh troops. And with that, we conclude this mini-series. I'll briefly repeat all these points again. First, know the rules and know your army. Second, make a plan. Third, take the initiative. Fourth, use available terrain. And fifth, have reserves ready. This was 5 tips and 3 videos on how you can improve your chances of winning. All of these recommendations are used in advance or when setting up the game. Special tactics during the game or by individual unit types are very dependent on the chosen era and rule system. The question is whether something like this should be presented in a concentrated manner here, or whether it should be included in videos about individual game systems. Both could make sense. If you're interested in more videos about tactics in the field, let me know down in the comments. A brief mention of which area you are interested in and which rules you use can't hurt either. Have I forgotten something important? If so, let me know in the comments too. Till then, and take care.